Hey, good afternoon. And once again, today is Wednesday, March the 20th, 2024. It is now 11:09 a.m. I want to talk about ECOWAS and about a specific question which relating to the strength of ECOWAS. So I have come across talks, okay? People, whether in their channels or their YouTube channels or engaging in conference talk or just talking in general, debating about the strength of ECOWAS and whether ECOWAS should be a strong institution, strong military institutions in West Africa. Now, there are those who will say that Africa need a security system, a strong security and military system to help defend Africa. I do believe that Africa need a strong security or military system, police system to defend Africa against outside intervention, to defend Africa against outside aggression. That's it. In terms of in-house, domestic Africa, what our security looks or feels like is something that we will have to decide for ourselves. We will have to make determination on. We will have to measure what the effectiveness of our security system is. But now to the question, should ECOWAS be a strong military institution? To that question, I say no. ECOWAS should not be a strong military institution. As of now, ECOWAS should remain weak. And the reason why I do believe that ECOWAS should remain weak is because the various African countries and African governments and African institutions, whether we are talking about financial, economic, societal, cultural institutions, academic institutions, they are all weak and they are dependent on outside intervention or outside control. Our government cannot take care of their obligation. Our governments, our countries cannot execute to address the well being of the people. Our government, to a greater extent, are incapable. It is about 60 years or more after so called independence in Africa. Our people are still suffering. Our women, our mother, our sister, our aunts are all giving birth on bare ground. They are dying during childbirth. Our sons and daughters, our babies, our children are dying during childbirth or dying at early age or ages. Our elderly, those in the retirement ages, cannot retire because once they retire, there is no safety net for them. Our youth, young people, do not have job opportunities, do not have adequate schooling. The vast majority of our young population is uneducated, and our education system are incapable of addressing the needs of our young students. In terms of food, about 85% or more of the food we consume in Africa comes from outside Africa. And it is very interesting and sad that Africa is home to about 60% of the world's arable land. Let me clarify that. Africa is home to about 60% or so of the world's farmable land. That means the land that is good for farming. 60% of it is in Africa. However, of that land, about less than 7% of it is being used. We import about 85% or more of the food we eat. That is a disaster economically, okay? And in terms of our independence, we have none. Now, when we talk about the economic aspect of it, when you're consuming, when 85% of the food you consume come from outsiders, That means you are giving away your money. You are purchasing from them. That means we are talking about money leaving Africa. Okay? The money from the average Africans leaving Africa to purchase outside goods. In terms of those who could be the African intelligentsia, those who could be the African corporation, the African entrepreneurs, who could be the farmers and the ones who invest in adequate education, adequate transportation industry, transportation infrastructure. That's money that leave in their pocket. That is money that they should be having, that is not coming to them. Our governments cannot even stand up for us. Our governments are incapable in various ways. Our governments are suppressed by outside forces, by outside countries or institutions. Our governments are dependent. Our industries are dependent. Our governments are incapable. They have no independence in terms of saying, in terms of their functions. Our government carried out function based on the policies of outside institutions and countries. If we do a poll right now throughout Africa and ask how many of us, especially youth, can say that our governments are good governments that are capable and that are executing, that are addressing our needs? I do believe the vast majority of those polled in Africa will say, I do not believe in my government. I'm against my government. My government should do better. Our governments, our countries are weak. With this being the case in terms of West Africa, if we have a strong ECOWAS, it is going to mean disaster for Africa. Because right now, I do believe Africa needs radical change, a radical grassroots change from the people. Given that the governments and the countries are incapable and cannot satisfy the needs of the people, that radical change could be very threatening for those governments. A strong ECOWAS, basically, or strong military system in Africa, basically, will function just to squash any dissent, just to destroy or counter any radical change in Africa. That basically we saw last year, 2023, with the coup. Many say coup, but I do believe it was a revolution in Africa when military groups basically ousted President Bazoum of Niger. France, the United States, and various institutions and other countries in the West criticized the Niger military leaders who carried out the coup or the revolution, if you will, against Bazoum. And they stressed the whole notion of Bazoum being a democratically elected president, which in itself is laughable because as much as they were stressing that Bazoum be reinstated because he was democratically elected, we have a democratically elected president that does nothing for its people, cannot satisfy the needs of his people. A democratically elected president sit there where France is taking the country's uraniums and other raw materials. France gets electricity and the people of Niger are in the dark at night. But yet Westerners are pushing democracy in Africa. So last year we saw the push by many around the world, especially in the West, pushing Nigeria to lead ECOWAS to attack Niger, a country that did not attack Nigeria. All they did was ousting their president. What we nearly saw was an ECOWAS with testosterone trying to exert strength and power. Let's say ECOWAS had done that. ECOWAS, in terms of its reputation around the world and in the West, would be seen as a strong institution, a strong military apparatus. That's what they want. They want a strong ECOWAS. If you're an African with common sense, with brain, I will tell you right now, you do not need a strong ECOWAS, especially if the rest of Africa, I'm talking about all the African countries, individually and together, collectively, the African Union and other African institutions, social, economic, and cultural institutions, as long as they are weak, we need a weak ECOWAS or weak military apparatus throughout the continent. Because if we have weak governments and weak countries, it means that our governments will not help us in no way. Our governments will not carry out policy that satisfy the needs of the people. However, the military apparatus will be so strong and renowned and invested in to the extent where it is going to function solely to counter any radical change in Africa. If you protest this or protest that, the military come and get you. If you say this or say that, the military come and get you. We only need strong ECOWAS and strong military system in Africa when the individual African countries and collectively as a continent is strong enough, sophisticated enough, and brave enough to say, we are going to execute, we are going to address the needs of our people. We are going to make sure that our raw materials stays in Africa and help with the development of the continent or of the various countries. With that, we need a strong military apparatus that can defend domestic Africa and the individual countries from domestic threat as well as external threat. We do not want an Africa where our governments are weak, don't care about us, do not do anything to help the people, but we have a strong ECOWAS that can just come and just kick the crap out of the people whenever the people rise up. So the question, do we need a strong ECOWAS? As of now, as long as our governments and countries and institutions in Africa remains poor, we do not need a strong ECOWAS, because a strong ECOWAS will mean a giant that would exist only to kick the crap out of us as people whenever we try to agitate the system for the change we need. I am going to end here. Thank you very much for watching The Echoing Voice. Peace.